Hello everyone, welcome to the basic research terminologies, and today we're going to see hypothesis. So, hypothesis is a plausible explanation that will be tested. Hypothesis is usually considered as an important mechanism in research. It is a tentative assumption made in order to test its logical or empirical consequences, we may say. A hypothesis may seem contrary to the real situations. It may prove to be correct or incorrect. Hypothesis needs to be clear and precise and capable of being tested. It is to be limited in scope and consistent with known or established facts and should be amenable to testing within the stipulated time. It needs to explain what it claims to explain and should have empirical reference. Hypothesis is made up of two words, that is hypo and thesis, which means less than or less certain than a thesis. Okay. Next, definition of hypothesis. Hypothesis, though defined by different scientists and different people, in simple language we may say hypothesis is a hunch, assumption, suspicion, assertion, or an idea, we may say, about a phenomenon, relationship, or a situation, the reality or truth of which you do not know at present. Okay, so such we can call is hypothesis. A researcher calls these assumptions hunches hypothesis, and they become the basis of an inquiry. In most studies, the hypothesis will be based upon your own or someone else's observation. Hypothesis brings clarity, specificity, and focus to a research problem, but is not essential for a study. You can conduct a valid investigation without constructing formal hypothesis. The formulation of hypothesis provides a study with focus. As it provides a focus, the construction of a hypothesis enhances objectivity in a study. A hypothesis may enable you to add to the formulation of a theory. It enables you to specifically conclude what is true or what is false. Ludwig observed quite often a research hypothesis is a predictive statement capable of being tested by scientific method. So in simple language, if we want to learn what is hypothesis, first the key word is it is an assumption of any reality or a situation of whose outcome we do not know, but they are capable of being tested, which is capable of being tested by scientific method. By scientific method. Okay, moving on further. Then comes the nature of hypothesis. The hypothesis is a clear statement of what is intended to be investigated. Okay, because we have told in the previous slide that what is hypothesis? Hypothesis is an assumption or a hunch कि ऐसा हो सकता है. That means it is a clear statement of what is intended to be investigated. Now, what we have made an assumption, we need to investigate whether whatever the assumption or a hunch that we have, is that correct or not. So, one nature of a hypothesis can be, it can be considered valuable even if it is proven false. Our assumption that we have made, it can be proven right, or either it can be even proven false, but it would be considered valuable even if it is false, because then the other people would know or other researchers would know that such path shouldn't be followed. Okay, it should be specified before research is conducted and openly stated in the reporting the results. Now again, the nature of hypothesis includes identifying the research objective, the key abstract concepts involved in the research. Hypotheses are not moral or ethical questions. It is neither too specific or nor too general. It is a prediction of consequences. So assumption, again, hypothesis is an assumption. So it is a prediction of the consequences by which is capable of being tested by scientific method, and from those testings we would be able to know whether those are true or false. But whatever may be the result, it would be considered valuable. Then comes importance of hypothesis. A hypothesis is recommended for all major studies to explain observed facts, conditions, or behavior, and to serve as a guide in the research process. So hypothesis It sensitizes the investigator to certain aspects of the situation which are relevant from the standpoint of the problem in hand. Then the hypothesis enables the researcher to relate logically known facts to intelligent guesses about unknown condition. It is a guide to the thinking process and the process of discovery. Okay. Then third point, hypothesis provides direction to the research. It provides a direction to the research. It defines what is relevant, what is irrelevant. The hypothesis tells the researcher what he needs to do, find out in his study, we may say. Then fourth point, hypothesis implies the statistical technique needed in the analysis of data and the relationship between the variable to be tested. It also helps to delimit the study in scope so that it does not become broad or unwieldy. Hypothesis provides the basis for reporting the conclusion of the study. It serves as a framework for drawing conclusion. So, hypothesis has a very important place in research, although it occupies a very small place in the body of the thesis. Next, before jumping on to what are the different types of hypothesis, we need to first know what is variable and what are different types of variable. So variable is a concept or a abstract idea that can be described in the measurable terms. For example, a test score could be a dependent variable because it can change depending on the several factors such as how much you studied, how much you sleep, you got the night before you took the test, or even how hungry you are when you took it. So this is a dependable variable. So dependable variable are also the, we can say, the outcome variable and the variable from which we calculate the statistic. While the independent variable are the variable that can be manipulated, controlled, or changed. So here they have taken the example of the watering to the plants. So here the amount of water we can vary, whether to water the plant more or less. So the amount of water can be varied. Okay. The effect of water, the effect the water will put on the trees will this will then become a dependent variable because it depends on the amount of water that we are providing. The amount of water can vary, so it is an independent variable. The trees does not have any effect on the water, but rather the water is having effect on the trees. So anything that can be manipulated, controlled, or changed, or can be varied is the independent variable, and the effect that the independent variable shows on another variable is the dependent variable. Another example we can take is of the fan and the regulator. Okay, as you rotate the regulator, we can vary the speed of the regulator. Okay, as you rotate the regulator to the fast or the lower speed, it affects the speed of the fan. So here the fan becomes a dependent variable and the regulator is the independent variable, and the regulator is the independent variable. So again, a summary: a variable is a concept or abstract idea that can be described in measurable terms. There are two forms, that is independent and dependent. Which can be varied or which can be manipulated or which can be changed is an independent variable, and due to the change caused to the independent variable, the dependent variable varies or the dependent variable changes. So whatever the effect is shown by the dependent or by the variable due to the independent variable is called as a dependent variable. So the outcome variable are the variable from which we calculate the statistics, that is the dependent variable. Okay, next, the types of research hypothesis. So research hypotheses are of four types, are of following types that are mentioned here: non-directional hypothesis, directional hypothesis, then comes the alternative hypothesis and the null hypothesis. So non-directional hypothesis as given here are the two-tailed hypothesis. Here the example has been given. Of the dog. Okay, one-tailed hypothesis and two-tailed hypothesis. So first we'll look one by one. A non-directional hypothesis predicts that the independent variable will have an effect on the dependent variable, but the direction of the effect is not specified. It just states that there will be difference. Okay, again, we'll read this again. The non-directional hypothesis predicts the independent variable predicts the independent variable, that means the water, will have an effect on the dependent variable, that is, it will have an effect on the plant. But the direction of the effect is not specified. That means watering, we are watering the plant, okay, but we do not know after watering the plant whether the plant will grow, will stunt its growth, will not grow at all, or will remain same. Okay, so the direction of the effect is not specified. So that statement will come under the non-directional hypothesis. Example, there will be a difference in how many number are correctly recalled by children and adults. Okay, then comes the directional hypothesis. A directional hypothesis is a one-tailed hypothesis as given in the picture. They have taken the example of a dog. Okay, predicts the nature of the effect of the, now here it predicts the nature of the effect of independent variable. Again, we'll take an example of water. It predicts the nature of the effect of the independent variable, that is water, on the dependent, that is on the plant variable. It predicts in which direction the change will take place. Okay, it clearly states that in which direction it will take place. Example, greater, smaller, less, or more. For example, if we say that if we water the plant more will be the growth. So this is a directional hypothesis. Okay, so this comes where it gives the direction, that it clearly states what will be the effect of a independent variable on the dependent variable. It directly states or give the direction, what effect it will place. It comes under the directional hypothesis. As given in the example here, we will see one-tailed hypothesis and two-tailed hypothesis. One-tailed hypothesis is the directional hypothesis, that is, a happy dog will eat more. Now it clearly states that a happy dog will eat more. It is giving a direction that a happy dog will eat more. Okay, that it is giving the your dog will be the your dog will be the independent variable and the food will be the dependent. No, yeah, the food will be the independent variable and the dog will be the dependent variable. Okay, so then the second example would be two-tailed hypothesis. Mood affects the appetite of the dog. So here again it is a two-tailed hypothesis, that is, it's a non-directional. Mood affects, it is giving a general statement that mood affects. Okay, we'll look only after the statement only, because this is whatever, if it gives the effect of the dependent, if it clearly states what the independent variable is doing to the dependent variable, if it is clearly giving a direction, that means it will come under a directional hypothesis. And if it is just stating a general statement, that will come in a non-directional hypothesis. So a happy dog will eat more. It is stating that happy dog will only eat more only. Okay, that means it is giving a direction. So it will come under the directional hypothesis. But rather in a second sentence or in a second hypothesis states that mood affects the appetite of dog. So mood affects the appetite of a dog. It's a general statement where we do not know yet whether in a happy state it will eat more or less, or whether when the dog is sad it will eat more or less. So this becomes a non-directional hypothesis. So it's a two-tailed. We do not know the circumstances when the dog is happy what it will do, and when the dog is sad what it will do. But rather in this state, in the first state, we clearly know that when the dog is happy it will eat more. So this is a directional hypothesis. Okay, this concept, I hope it's clear. Then comes the alternative hypothesis and the null hypothesis. So alternative hypothesis states that there is a relationship between the two variables being studied. One variable has an effect on the other, that is, again, the independent variable has an effect on the dependent variable, whereas no effect has been shown by the dependent variable on the independent variable. So it has a relation. Someone is due to the variation of some variable, due to the manipulation of some variable, the other is getting affected. An experimental hypothesis predicts what changes will take place in the dependent variable when the independent variable has been manipulated. Okay, it states that the results are not due to chance and that they are significant in terms of supporting the theory being investigated. So null hypothesis states that there is no relation between the two variables being studied. One variable does not affect the other. So this comes under the null hypothesis. So these are used when the researcher believes there is no relation between two variables, or when there is inadequate theoretical or empirical information to state a research hypothesis. The null hypothesis represents a theory that has been put forward either because it is believed to be true or because it is to be used as a basis for argument. Okay, so there will be no change in the dependent variable due to the manipulation of the independent variables. For example, here they have given a beautiful example of the null hypothesis, that is, no statistical relation exists between a plant growth and a different forms of water used in the watering the plants. So here they have taken two independent variable, two different types of independent variables. So that is distilled water and mineral water. So they are trying to say whether you water the plant with the distilled water or mineral water, it will no statistical relation or no what we can say, nothing can be predicted from that. So again, this will read this: if one plant is watered with distilled water and the other with the mineral water, then there is no difference in the growth and nourishment of these two plants. Okay, so such statement comes under the null hypothesis. Then alternative hypothesis: if one plant is watered with the distilled water and the other with the mineral water, then the plant with mineral water shows better growth and the nourishment. So such hypothesis which gives a relation between the two variable, or which states the relationship between the two variable, that statement comes under the alternative hypothesis. Hope the different forms of hypothesis have been cleared. Thank you.